Pokemon Legends ZA is certainly a game that has Pokemon in the title. I'll be frank, I did not hate this game, but I also did not like it. When compared to the previous Legends game, it is a complete failure, and I think that's where a lot of the issues with this game comes from. This game should not be a Legends game. It felt more like they wanted to make a Battle Revolution or a Stadium style game, but instead of using rental Pokemon, you could freely roam the city and capture your own team. In a vacuum, that idea is not bad. But when you call it a Legends game, I'm expecting it to be a game similar to Arceus, not a Battle Royale game. The execution is also lacking in my opinion, so let's talk about that. First, let's go over what the game does well. The game has some really good music. Alright, let's go over what the game does poorly now. Okay, I jest. That's not the only thing the game does well, but I do think that for most of the other things that I saw potential in, they always had some sort of serious flaw to it. For starters, the game actually does have some decent customization options for a Pokemon game, and that's the issue, as it is for a lot of other things I'm about to go over. For a franchise as large as Pokemon, they could and should be doing a lot more. It's awesome that we can customize our characters. It's a mild annoyance that there are like 20 clothing stores in the game with completely different inventory that you have to go back and forth to figure out which store has what. It's realistic this way, but kind of annoying after a while as you spend 30 minutes looking for one specific store that you saw an item in and you can't remember which one was selling it. Everyone has smartphones, so after first accessing the store, why not add an ability to buy that store's stock from your phone? But aside from that, the game does have decent customization options if you have double X chromosomes or want to be a femboy. The male selection is quite limited. Still better than most Pokemon games, so I guess I'll count it as a plus-ish. Aside from that, people are probably expecting me to talk about how much I enjoyed the battle system. And the thing is, I did not enjoy it. At all, actually. Kinda my fault, though. I didn't like the Xenoblade Chronicles combat, and this is basically just a worse version than that. I was hoping that maybe since it was Pokemon, I would like it more, but I just didn't. I can certainly see why some people do enjoy it, though, and I'm happy that they tried something new, but it did not click for me. I enjoyed Legends Arceus' combat infinitely more than this. It's all real-time here. Every attack has a cooldown timer, a range of effectiveness, locations where it can be fired off at, and stuff like that. But unfortunately for me, I just didn't like it, and this game is mostly a battle-focused experience. Unlike in Arceus, where the player is going up against the bosses themselves, in this game, you are using your Pokemon in the same battle system while also having to dodge attacks. Truth be told, I don't hate the idea. It can easily work. But I wasn't a fan of the execution. The only real way to do damage is either by using Mega Evolutions or plus attacks, otherwise you barely do any damage at all. As you fight the bosses in this game, they will drop orb charges for your Mega Evolution gauge that you can then use to either Mega Evolve or use plus attacks. So battles are mostly just you using useless attacks in hopes of forcing the boss to drop some orbs to charge them up and do extra damage. You will also be dodging the boss's attacks throughout this whole process. It isn't actually bad aside from me not enjoying the Pokemon battles themselves. It's just that I think Arceus did it much better. Throwing bombs and not having to worry about your partner Pokemon during the real-time combat. One reason is because the battle system doesn't allow you to directly control where your Pokemon moves during combat. Your partner will constantly be running back to your side, even while you're in the middle of running from a boss's attack, like Solar Beam. And that Solar Beam lasts for a long time. Your partner will be trying to catch up to you, running into that Solar Beam and constantly taking damage because its AI is completely retarded. You could recall your partner, but that forces you to stand still and then take the Solar Beam yourself. Of course, upon hearing this, you may think I hated the boss fights completely, and that's not entirely true. Like I said before, this game has some good ideas but with bad execution. One of these good ideas was the fight with Mecha Frostlass. The Frostlass will constantly attack you and eventually charge up a super attack that drops icicles onto the field around you. After a few more attacks, it will have a follow-up super AoE that will damage you and your Pokemon while also freezing your partner, preventing them from doing any damage. However, you can completely negate this by hiding behind one of those icicles that dropped prior, using this environmental addition from the boss to protect you. You can recall your Pokemon from behind the icicle no problem, so this is actually a well-designed mechanic for this specific boss. It actually was starting to give me some Monster Hunter vibes. And that just makes me bring up Legends Arceus again. Legends Arceus was most successful when it was trying to be a Monster Hunter style game. Running around different biomes, studying the Pokemon, and doing field quests for people to help bridge the gap between villagers and Pokemon. Legends ZA completely ignored all of that in favor of this Battle Royale. Yes, I know they tried to sell the Wild Zones as an attempt to bridge the gap between Pokemon and people, but that failed for a bunch of reasons I'll get to shortly. For those that didn't see my Legends Arceus game review, I'll give a brief rundown. Legends Arceus is a game where you go to a new region to perform survey tasks on the Pokemon living there for your settlement, so the villagers there can better adapt to this foreign land. You go to different zones differentiated by their biomes and capture new Pokemon, as well as finding items around the map to help you craft equipment that better help you catch more Pokemon. It's quite literally just Monster Hunter, but Pokemon. I mentioned in my Legends Arceus video that I wish that they had done more with the Monster Hunter vibes, such as completing Dex entries would unlock more Pokemon for you to go hunt as the game progressed, eventually leading you to unlocking hunts for legendaries. But as we can see here, that is not at all what they did in Legends ZA. Legends ZA takes place in a city, a singular city. It has wild areas that are supposed to mimic the biomes from Arceus, but they just don't. They're small, only have a handful of Pokemon, and the Pokemon are just randomly there. In the city, all environments blending together. And only like one NPC ever brings up that maybe bringing a bunch of fire-breathing lions into an extremely flammable city might be a bad idea. This kind of writing perpetuates throughout the game. As soon as we end up at Poke Paris, we get mugged, by a person of color I might add, not sure what Game Freak was going for with that. But then we just let them go? We don't arrest them? And then this random person I just met decides to take my baggage to their hotel, and then makes me stay there? Surely I had an existing reservation somewhere, right? Well, it doesn't matter anymore, I've been kidnapped. And then we find out like 10 hours after beating around the bush that wild Pokemon are suddenly mega evolving, and we need to help the government put an end to this. Excuse me, bitch. You were inviting wild Pokemon into the city to live in wild zones that you set up for them, while also being completely aware that they can go berserk at any moment? They argue that they wanted to create wild zones because it'd help Pokemon and people get to know each other better. Except it's been well established that Pokemon and people have had strong bonds in every Pokemon game, except for Legends Arceus, because that game takes place in the past. Makes sense. ZA takes place 5 years after X and Y. That bond between Pokemon and people has already been established. Everyone in Poke Paris is going to die because of you. They didn't even attempt to make this make sense. The real reason Wild Zones exist is because they wanted to give the player places to go to catch new Pokemon. It would have been better for them to not even try to justify them. I still would have complained about it, but now I'm not only complaining, I also think whoever wrote this was a special needs hire. Speaking of which, the writing in this game is very special. Most of the game's writing is kind of like the Wild Zone explanation. There certainly is writing, but it was also certainly shoehorned in to get us from point A to point B without proper flow or cause. I was constantly laughing at it because of this. Not with it, just to be clear. Most of the time the game is not trying to be funny. Very similar to how people find Kingdom Hearts to be comedy gold. I made a short of this a while back, so forgive me if you've already seen this, but it perfectly encapsulates the writing quality of this game.
Pokemon Legends ZA has some of the greatest writing in gaming. If you don't believe me, then let me prove it to you. This guy is One Punch Man, but for some reason he insists on using his Pokemon for battles. So in order to battle him, we have to go find his sister because she has his phone, since it would break if he so much as looked at it. His sister wanted to go hang out with a friend and then have some alone time. Instead of waiting a few hours for her to return, he decides to hire a private detective to help him search the entirety of Paris for her. He then finds out that she actually went into the sewer system here. This one, completely submerged with water. I'm afraid this is no longer a rescue, but a recovery. And how do we plan on getting in? This genius detective deduces that if we were to somehow freeze the fountain with Ice Beam, the sewer would dry up. No idea how the logics, but I'm more concerned that she actually wants us to do this, which makes no sense. It is the middle of the day, and based off the clothes that everyone's wearing here, it is not nearly cold enough for this to stay frozen very long. But of course, no one is concerned about that. Now we're about to become drowning victims too. Except of course that's not what happens. The fountain freezes perpetually and we end up exploring the sewers, only to be blocked by this massive steel grate door that has a huge padlock on our side of it. Obviously this dude's sister has to be somewhere on this side of the door, right? But no, they insist that she must be on the other side. And of course they were correct. How did she get this door closed and locked? Well, she asked some random Klefki to padlock the door shut. Klefki has neither hands nor fingers, so how the hell did it do that? And don't say about using Psychic, because it only learns that as a TM. Also, we found this Klefki earlier, and it didn't have the key to the padlock on it. How? Was she planning on getting out had we not come? Who wrote this quest? And if you're wondering how we got past the padlock, Saitama here punched the 300-pound door down himself. Why is this guy a Pokemon trainer? This is just one microcosm of the amazing writing of this game. 10 out of 10 would recommend.
It's kind of unfortunate. I actually do find some of the NPCs charming, though most of them are pretty cringy, villain of the week type ordeals. Some of them are likable, even when the writing isn't very consistent. Like this mob boss who forces people into slavery but also somehow has a heart of gold and genuinely wants to help people. It's a bit absurd, but he's also probably the best character in the game, so it's really weird. I feel like this could work if he was introduced at the start of the game and you saw him throughout it, with him showing more of his complicated motivations throughout the game or something, but whatever, I guess. I will never forget his heroic sacrifice. Another thing I want to mention is that the main character is special for reasons that are never explained in the game. Zygarde has bonded with the player for literally no reason. I mean, yes, you do eventually win the Battle Royale, but it's super into you way before then. And Zygarde's supposed to have this cell collection thing that they just ignore for most of the game. It's brought up like once. Every now and then, you see random Zygarde cells without any explanation. Nothing about this makes sense, other than the fact that we never got a third version of X and Y, and they wanted to do something with Zygarde, which is extremely contrived like most of the game's writing. I mean, at least the final battle of the game is a pretty cool cinematic fight, which I wish the rest of the game was given equal care for. But that's enough about the game's terrible writing. Like, there are times when I did enjoy myself with it, as mentioned, but those times are few and far in between. Pokemon writing hasn't really been good for a while now. I guess they think that it's not important for a kid's game, but I completely disagree. I still remember feeling emotions at the end of the first 2 Pokemon Mystery Dungeons games. So Game Freak is capable of good writing. They just choose not to do it for whatever reason. Small indie game studio, please understand, I guess. So let's talk about the game's graphics. The style they went with here is very reminiscent of Scarlet and Violet, which is a massive shame, cause it looks like Arceus. Arceus went with more of a cel shading aesthetic, which, while not perfect, it at least looked nice to the eyes. Flat textures, yes, but the game had style, which gave it charm. This game looks extremely generic by comparison. The windows on these buildings are supposed to have some sort of ornamental bars in front of them, but they're just painted on and look horrendous. But then out of nowhere, they have this random NPC walk up to you, and she has more polygons on her ass than the entire city does combined. You know what? I changed my mind. Game's 10 out of 10, would recommend. I tend not to care too much about graphics myself, to be fair. As long as the rest of the game is excellent, then it's usually fine. It's just that this looks worse than Arceus, which came out well before this game did. And after all the leaks, which I'm not going to explicitly state any of the information from, but I can see that they don't give a damn about Pokemon, just the money they can make from it. But like, even with a limited budget or time frame, do you know what they could have done? Not spend so much development time on making a several hours long tutorial. Use that time to improve the graphics or the writing. Like seriously, Game Freak, do you think modern children are retarded or something? Do you remember what the tutorial of the Gen 1 Pokemon games were? Because I do. It was literally just, wild Pokemon will attack you in tall grass, so you'll need your own Pokemon to fight them. And here's how you catch Pokemon, K thanks bye. And if you want to justify that today's children are retarded and as such need a 5 hours long tutorial, then I hate to break it to you. They won't be able to read it anyway. If only you had voice acting for the illiterate. But I digress. This game has no business being a Legends game, as mentioned already. I think it should have been marketed as a Stadium or Battle Revolution style game with pseudo open world mechanics. That's basically what it is. Yes, there are some side quests, which I actually do like having in a Pokemon game. Their writing isn't the best, but I mean, I'm not expecting Falcom level of writing from a Pokemon game. I like how they do have something similar to the research task of Arceus, and that's how you get the bulk of your TMs in this game. This was actually executed pretty well. I guess I just wish Pokemon was made by a company that actually cared about their product. I've never been a huge fan of comparing Pokemon and Digimon as they originally filled completely different niches. That has changed over time, and I think it's kind of warranted now. Digimon Story Time Stranger came out just before Pokemon Legends ZA. Despite being a significantly less popular franchise, they put a ton of resources into making it the best Digimon game that they could, and it's a great game. People have been claiming this for a long time, but it really does seem to me like Game Freak doesn't care about putting efforts into Pokemon games at all because they know that they'll sell. I just thought that Game Freak was out of touch as they'd been in an ivory tower for far too long, but after the aforementioned leaks, I've also come to believe this. In contrast, Bandai Namco originally decided that Digimon had no future, at least in the West, until the Cyber Sleuth games came out. Sorry, Freudian slip. But can you blame me when the Digimon looked like this? Anyway, it seemed that Bandai had given up on Digimon and was keeping the series on life support by a couple of very passionate Digimon fans. Eventually, Bandai decided to take the financial risk of actually creating a Digimon game with some monetary backing, and we got the Cyber Sleuth duology. These games are far from perfect, but they're very charming. They were obviously made by people who are passionate about Digimon, Hacker's Memory especially so. The game was made by people who had been touched by Digimon from its very beginning, and they turned the game into a pseudo-tribute to Koji Wada, who passed away during the game's development. Yeah, the Cyber Sleuth games are janky Vita games, but they're charming. Pokemon is lacking that. And if Pokemon doesn't start getting made by people who actually are passionate about Pokemon, they'll never be able to compete with this. P.S. Bandai, if you would, please release Digimon World 1 on GOG, and then give Redigitize an official English translation, I beg of you. The former is one of my favorite PS1 games, and I imported the latter only to get stuck because my PSP screen was too tiny and I couldn't make out the Japanese characters, and I couldn't look up where the game was trying to get me to go. Okay, thanks. But anyway, I wish Game Freak put the same level of passion into Pokemon that the Digimon game devs do. I just don't see that happening anytime soon. It's too big to fail now. Maybe if we keep getting games as high quality as Digimon Story Time Stranger or Pal World, Pokemon will feel threatened enough to actually put effort into its games again. But with the Pal World lawsuit going on, I think Game Freak believes it would lose less money in a lawsuit than it would by spending more money on making a better game. And that's tragic. I am fully aware that there are people who genuinely enjoy Pokemon Legends EA. I have a couple of friends in real life that enjoyed it. I'm glad somebody liked the game, but unfortunately, I did not, as was the case for many others. According to the Metacritic user scores, this game is one of the lowest rated Pokemon games, and it's nowhere near the ratings of Pokemon Legends Arceus. I really hope they go back to the Monster Hunter style game for future Legends games. I know that might make some people upset, as I know some people love this Battle Royale game, but it seriously has no reason to be called a Legends game. It should have been its own spin-off series, and felt like it was only called a Legends game to help boost the game's sales with the people who liked Arceus, and that's just a scummy thing to do. Please, Game Freak, just put an effort to your games instead of trying to trick your customers. And just so I'm clear, while I am upset with them using the Legends moniker for this game, even had it been called something else, it doesn't fix the issues with the game. This game is just Pokeslop, as the hip young folk call it. Once again, if you enjoyed it, I'm glad. But if Game Freak keeps this up, one day, Pokemon will have more haters than fans, and that'd be such a shame. Anyway, that's all I got for today. Sorry it got so rambly. Thank you for watching if you did, and if you agree or disagree with me, let me know in the comments why. I'm sure this video upset someone, but I just had to say it. I used to love Pokemon, and I still do. I just hate what it's become.